Workshop tonight. I'd like to introduce our workshop presenter. Amanda Wickham is here. She has gone and taken the NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School Master Training for Leave No Trace. And one of the things, I'm really happy that she has come back to present this to our ADK club because she applied for a scholarship through our club and we helped send her to this training class. So now she is going to share some of that information with us. By day, she works at RIT. She's got a little 3-year-old and she is looking for ways to practice these principles and share them to create an awareness in the community. So I'd like you to welcome Amanda Wickham, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks to you guys paying your dues that helped me get to this. Like she said, I work at RIT in student affairs. I do a lot of the fun stuff. I plan events. I work with students. I work with clubs and organizations. And in my free time, that is sometimes hard to find, I like to spend it outside, biking, hiking, spending time with my son, and my boyfriend Dave, who came here, so thank you. So today I just want to give you an overview of the Leave No Trace principles. This is not a clicker. So we'll be talking about the principles. I'm going to go through a quick activity where you guys can talk to people next to you about different things that we have potentially committed as hikers that broke our principles and broke our ethics. We will talk about that, the principles in our everyday life and how we can take that out from today, even before you hit the trail or you go paddling or you're biking. And suggest kind of an action plan, something that you can do right away. And then I want to talk about the continued learning and opportunities that you can seek in regards to Leave No Trace. So, of course, just wanted to start with the mountains are calling, so I must go. I do subscribe more to hiking and backpacking, but I know that there are probably some pretty hardcore paddlers here, or bikers, or other ways of recreating. So our first principle is plan ahead and prepare, and I kind of have this table laid out of all the stuff, kind of this is what it looks like while I'm planning and preparing ahead. I'm thinking about the weather, I'm thinking about who's going with me, can we split up group gear, so do I need to carry a tent, do I need to carry all the things, or can we split that up? Can one person carry the fuel, can one person carry the stove? Also being mindful of who is going with us, so as your group size, depending on where you're hiking, there could be a limitation on how many people you can hike as a group. And even if you split your group up, that's not technically following the rules. A lot of this plan and prepare ahead is knowing where you're going and their regulations there. So it looks a lot different on the West Coast than it does necessarily on the East Coast or in the Adirondack Mountains or if you're paddling. So making sure we know the weather and understanding that the weather could change, so being prepared in that aspect. The length of your trip will dictate kind of what you're bringing and what's going on. Training. What is that you need to know to go into these woods? Is that physical training? You know, hiking to the base camp of Everest, training looks a lot different than maybe going to Birdsong Trail and having that mindset of how long you're going to be out there. One of the things that I don't know everyone practices very often, but leaving your plan with someone, saying, this is where I'm going, this is my anticipated time, this is when I'm going to be back. An emergency is at this time. If you have not heard from me, we need to now move into an emergency mode. Now when you tell someone your plan, to not deviate from that plan. And so if you decide to tack on Giant after doing RPR that you didn't tell your original person, you're going to get back later and you're going to start to move into sending emergency signals to someone in a sense. We talk about us preparing and planning ahead, but some of the thoughts on Leave No Trace are understanding what happens if I have an emergency. what impact will my rescue have on this space? We read about those rescue missions, and people are spread out, they're not on trails, they're, you're helicoptering, or different things are happening that are going to leave a bigger impact. So is it worth you getting that next high peak during that super snowy day, or can you wait? Can you hike something else? So considering if something goes wrong, what that impact would be too. Any questions on plan ahead and prepare? Yes?
Do you know the number that is acceptable for hikes and hikes?
I believe it's 8. For overnight, correct. So he said 15 for a day hike and 8 for overnight, thank you. And I also want to recognize I'm not an expert, so if we know the answer in the crowd, I would love for you to source that too. Travel and camp on durable surfaces is the next principle, and they kind of travel in an order that makes sense as you're hiking or you're preparing for a trip. So when you're staying on the trail, and that sometimes means getting your boots really muddy. If you hike in the Adirondacks, they're muddy. And you could get into mud up to your calves. But as we start to widen our steps, we're widening the trail. And now we're damaging those fragile places on the side of our trail. And you're deterring from what we're out there to do. We're not supposed to be adding or taking away any more than we have to. I was able to go and build trails this past April, and he really, as the land manager, told me, I want to make the line, my trail, look as natural as possible and as small as possible, because I want you to take everything else and not this trail. So we're doing the rock hop, staying on things that are very durable, avoiding the alpine grasses, because we know that those take a really long time to grow back. When we're camping, we are utilizing designated campsites and following those rules. So if we have the 8 people, not cramming in the 12 or the 15 people into that lean-to, or putting 2 tents on a site, because that's going to widen the footprint of that campsite. We're going to be camping 20 feet away from water, and that is so we can keep those spaces pristine, that we're not contaminating them. And then we're also giving the animals the opportunity to get to that water source. Questions on travel and camp on durable surfaces? Oh, I'm sorry, 200 feet. Thank you, yes. So disposing of waste properly. This was just a quick hike that I took down at Leshford. Sorry, I wanted to say Taconic Falls. Leshford. And this was just from like a quick walk from my car to that viewing spot, or these were the items that I found. And so that's one thing, disposing of our trash. But it's also disposing of our human waste and disposing of all the stuff that we are cooking with. So if you're cooking with water, we're not dumping that in the water source. We're not just leaving it in a bottle in the woods. So there are opportunities to sump, so that's digging down and pouring it in. You can also strain the water and then broadcast it. And so really reducing the unnatural influences. So have you ever been where someone throws out their banana peel? It's an organic piece of material, but that actually takes a really long time to break down, and I've never seen a banana tree in the Adirondacks. I'm actually pretty guilty of eating the whole apple, so like I eat right through the core, so that I don't have to carry it out and I don't have any waste part of it. When we talk about bathrooms, I think we hear a lot about that when it comes to the Adirondacks with the Charmin Gardens and going, like surface groups. All of those things are really easy to avoid when I plan and prepare ahead. I personally like to use toilet paper when I go pee, but I don't leave it there. You can dig a hole and bury it and cover it up. You're not leaving a stick to like mark the territory. You want to make it like it never happened, but I just use a plastic bag and I carry it out. But there are sometimes outhouses and facilities, and encouraging people to use those. I was hiking at Marksy and I came down and it got to a wide part of the trail and I started to smell urine. I was like, this is like unbelievable. And I'm like, there must be like a really close outhouse or some sort of facility. People with my hiking group were like, oh, I'm gonna step into the woods. And it was the literal meaning of a Charmin garden. There was toilet paper everywhere. There were feminine products hanging from the tree. It was unreasonable for me to like understand that someone would do that. And so really, anything you bring in, you take out. We can go into more about pooping in the woods and doing those things and those proper techniques, but really bury it or take it out with you. Questions? Yes?
What's P and PA?
Prepare, or plan and prepare ahead of time. So be thoughtful about what you're bringing with you. Thank you. So I brought a little demonstration. I'm gonna bring my fig. Look at that. Off my cup. And now I have fig Newton in my mouth. Do you need, when you're planning and preparing ahead, did I need these two pieces of material to bring my fig Newtons? No. So you try to condense so you won't be leaving the micro trash. I'm not going hiking, so I didn't want to open up my granola bars and put them all in one bag. But that's an idea. As you're walking, sometimes you can find the little pieces like this piece that has come off. And that can eliminate that opportunity. So planning ahead and preparing your pack that you have a trash bag to carry out those items. If you are cooking, you might have sumped materials that are like leftover noodles, or even if you didn't finish your meal, you have to take that out too. That fig Newton bar was very dry. Other questions?
Can you just talk about like capital and what are proper techniques?
Yes. When you are deciding, nature calls, so you have to go to the bathroom, you've been walking for a while, checking where the water is, so you want to be pooping far away from water, at least 200 feet. And you'll dig, if you have a trowel with you, makes it very easy, but you want to dig at least 6 inches down, and you poop in this hole. If you miss, you use a stick or a leaf, and you kind of push it in. The important part of this next step, once you've pooped in this hole, is to add the organic soil back in and kind of swirl and break it down. This will help so it won't take as long. And then cover it up, and don't leave a stick sticking up like that no one used this bathroom. Like, you just cover it up. You maybe take some duff and some loose leaf litter and cover it up some more. So that's an opportunity. There are, with rock climbing, there was a philosophy of smearing on rocks, and the use of the UV would sanitize it. That is not so much the case, especially with the increased activity of rock climbers. So really using a poop tube, and they poop in that and carry that out with them. That's happening, I believe, in Everest as well, with like the colder temperatures. So right now is another opportunity. The Adirondacks talk a little bit about, there's pretty good ice or snow, and so it's a little bit harder during these times because you got to dig through the snow and then through the ground. Because if you're digging down into the snow, when that snow melts, there are now surface poops everywhere. Did that answer your question? Okay. There's a great book about pooping in the woods that I think can help with different techniques. And while I was on my course, one of my classmates did a really fun activity of, is this a poop pose or a yoga pose? So if you practice yoga, we can talk a little bit about that. But there's some fun stuff that you can do to talk more about it and make it people feel more comfortable about a natural bodily function. Leave what you find, and that's really if we all started taking a little bit of a stick or a rock or an acorn, you wouldn't be able to see it. This also goes to, I can't think of places necessarily around here exactly, but arrowheads and pieces of our past. Those are not for us to take. That is for us to observe and enjoy in that space and think about what this land has experienced during that time, and then let others do the same. Commemorate your hikes and your experiences in other ways, and so that's kind of pictures, either getting patches, and the packing in, packing out kind of goes with the next piece, because we have legislation and acts that after 50 years or more, these things become protected. Do we want, if someone for 50 years we leave this and this is going to be around forever, right? This could now become a protected piece and it wouldn't be able to leave, and it is now part of our story. So when people come in 50 years, like, those people found this as important and didn't care, right? We don't want to protect this. And then I also want to go with leave what you find on invasive species. So with your boats and your boots, they will come with you as you're walking in the middle of the paths through the mud puddles. Your boots will have tag-alongs, and making sure that we're cleaning those off. When you get to the parking lot, you get to the end of the trail, there are places that sometimes have at the trailheads boot cleaners, and to think about that with your boats. Like in the Finger Lakes, we have different invasive species that are traveling from lake to lake because we have day recreation use of kayaks or boats that are jumping. And I don't want to take that away from us. We want to be able to do that opportunity, but we need to protect the spaces. Questions there? The next principle is to minimize our campfire impact. So I think my first question is, at any time, do you need a campfire? Do you need a bonfire, or are you doing something to cook? That picture in your head, a cooking fire should look very different than your bonfire. And are these appropriate in outdoor spaces? There's a lot of things that you can do that are really fun and innovative over having a campfire. So I think. So now you have a lamp, right? And this is what we did on our Leave No Trace. We never had a fire. We were in a place that there was a regulation against it, so we used stoves. If you have your huge bonfire, you're missing out on the stars or whatever else is happening. The noise of the fire is taking away from the noise of the nature. You can use camp stoves. There are minimum impact fire opportunities, such as a mound fire or a fire pan. Is anyone familiar with these? I know I heard there were Boy Scouts people or like scout leaders. So I do have a picture, obviously, of a camp stove, and then those two opportunities of a mound fire and a pan fire. The mound fire is getting a fireproof tarp that's, maybe a foot by a foot, and then putting organic dirt on top and building your fire on that. If you do decide to move with having a fire, really making sure that the wood that you're collecting is the 3Ds, the down, dead, and dingy, so nothing bigger than your forearm, because you want to completely burn those pieces all the way down. This is a picture, it's a little hard to tell here, but this is the summit at, where was I? Do you remember? I think it was Rocky Ridge. And we get to the summit, and I see here, there are just different pieces of burned wood, and now I know that I'm not supposed to have a fire there, but not everyone knows that, and someone has had a fire here. So let me build my fire, and I'm going to enjoy whatever is happening at the top of this peak, and it encourages more, and there have been major catastrophes that happen in the Adirondacks due to fires, and we had fire towers for a reason. If you decide to do a fire, burn completely, making sure that fire is completely out and not going, you know, the roots can travel. There can be underground fires. There are major issues that happen in California. And then trying to return that space to as natural as possible. And then if you're using a pre-made established fire ring, cleaning that space out as much as possible so you can pack out some of those ashes. Who wants to come into like a used like fire pit that's kind of, you know, full of ashes? Now it's hard for me to build my fire. When we talk about minimizing fire impact, thinking about where your fire is, what is around. So are there trees, are there leaves, are there limbs, how close is your tent, and what are we burning in this fire? Really being mindful. I know that I kind of was looking at a survey online. People feel differently, but burning your plastic and your trash this is going to leave a film on our trees. It's not good for us to breathe. And so I know it's sometimes easy or fun to see the green flames or whatever it is, but it's not good for our environment, and it's going to leave a trace. Yes?
So, you know, if you're at an established campsite that has a ring and that sort of thing, is there a reason that you should not enjoy a fire in that? I mean,
Oh no, I'm not saying that. You can definitely enjoy a fire if it's permissible and there's a ring. Yes, do that. But do you need to have the 6-foot flame fire? Even if it's in like, do we need to go overboard? You know, wood is a renewable resource, but do we have to use that to excess? So I've been camping with my sister, who just loves a campfire. She wants to have the biggest, the best campfire. And talking to her about, is that necessary? And then we have to stay up and make sure it goes out, and we have to, you know, burn to the ash, and it's wasteful sometimes. But yes, I'm not saying don't have a campfire. The next principle is respecting wildlife. It's hard to see in this photo, but here's a little buddy here. This little mouse I met. He was almost like a little stewardess, thank you. When I was on Saw and this little buddy greeted us at the top and was begging for food on our boots. Like, I thought he was gonna run up my leg. And this is our fault. You get to the summit, you're excited, we want to celebrate, you have just hiked, you're out of breath, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna have my snack now. And that those crumbs and the micro trash, he now knows that this is a sweet spot. And he's cute, and maybe someone wants to give him a part of their sandwich. But that's not how they should live. And we're teaching him bad things. And this little mouse isn't going to claw or hurt me to any like major degree as a bear would, or other animals. So observing them from a distance, have a long distance relationship with our furry animal friends. We should be avoiding their sensitive times and habitat. So if we know that it's like loons, if it's breeding time, like not going up to their nesting location, because if we get too close and our scent has thrown on that, they won't return. And now we're hurting the future of loons. Never feed the animals. Store our foods properly. Food should be stored 200 feet away from you in a bear canister or maybe in a bear hang. And then with wildlife, some of us hike with dogs. They need to be under control while you're hiking because they also can disturb, they catch a scent. And we'll talk a little bit more about animals. And I think we mostly think of the bears and the mice and the beavers and the loons, but we also have to think about the microorganisms that are, on the side of the trail or living in the trees, the bugs, the spiders, all of those things too we need to be respecting. I don't love when spiders are in my house. I'm sure spiders don't love it when I'm trampling through their house. And that's their space, so let's not be squishing bugs when we're walking in their home. let's leave them to their space. Questions? Yes? Bear? I believe bear hangs are not acceptable use in the Adirondacks. It's the bear canisters, and they're very specific about your bear canisters as well. And you can rent those from the ADK Mountain Club. You can rent them from, I believe, what is the place in Lake Placid? Mountaineer. Yes. Yep.
I will tell you that next month in February, our workshop is on bear canisters and bear bags.
Yeah.
Pack them, what's packing them.
Nice.
So you'll get more information on that
Yes.
next workshop.
Nice. And really, if you are respectful and out of their way, and we aren't enticing them, they're going to do their thing, and we're going to be able to recreate, and we can recreate together at a long-distance relationship. I do have bear spray up here. I know we were kind of talking about that with the person before. And that's really just like a precaution and a conversation to be had. That's your choice if you choose to carry bear spray, but you need to know how it operates. So having the bear spray, it's in a bag now because I'm not using it, but if I'm in the high peaks and it's prime bear time, in a bag in the bottom of my backpack is not going to be the best place for it. So when I was on the Knowles trip, we did encounter a bear while we were sleeping. We were at a lean-to, and I heard my bear canister kick over, which was 200 feet away, and we woke up, we kind of made a line, and we were able to, you know, spook the bear away. We didn't have to do anything further. I think he ran up a tree and we kind of went later, but if we are being responsible, he will be afraid and he will run away. It's when they are able to, when you're feeding them, when you're practicing, when you're not practicing leave no trace, that then it becomes dangerous. And it's kind of our fault when they have to be euthanized or put down. The last, which I think is really important, is being considerate of others. That's kind of a newer ethic, it's toward the end, but there's a lot of us that are using this space. You know, 255 average visitors on Cascade this past year that summit stewards were able to interact with. And when we get to the summit, you want that to be a magical space and a magical time that you get to enjoy. So don't be a summit hog. So standing up there, relaxing, like maybe you do a staging before and you take your pack off and you get your snack and you do all that. And then you go up to the summit and you have your moment and then you leave so that we can have that space for everyone. Yielding to others, so I'm coming down the trail, I'm happy to go jolly, you know, down trail. I should be the one stepping aside for the uphill hiker, because who are we? Oh, let me walk around you. And now I'm, you know, going off trail. So being mindful of everyone else. And that can be a time, you know, maybe they want to engage and they want to talk about kind of how's the weather, what's going on, but being mindful of that. When you do take a rest, if you've been hiking for 45 minutes, not in the middle of the trail, because we have the people, you know, maybe trail running down, or we have someone that is hiking up. Find a durable space that is off trail, and maybe it's a couple feet off trail, and I have my quiet conversation over here, and someone's hiking, they never have to know that they just passed us or that there are other people here, and they can have their kind of sanctuary as well. And remaining in control, so if you are like running or you're pushing your limits, so that you're not, you know, like running into someone and being, you know, flamboyant. And this last one, we talked a little bit about, you can see these people here. It's hard to see in these pictures, but he's got jeans on and he's been taking, you don't know this, but he's been taking photos for the past like 15 minutes. First he was doing it with his drone at Indian Head it's prohibited. And then they had their dog that's running around and he's like hanging over the edge and they're trying to just get that perfect Instagram photo. And really took away from my experience of, you know, the summit. And so being mindful of who's around. If it's a slower day, you know, or not hiking, when you're planning and preparing ahead, you're not hiking at peak season or peak times, so you're on it's a Tuesday. Maybe you'll have the summit for a lot longer than if it's Saturday and you're going to Cascade. Those are different opportunities. Questions?
Your last one, low profile dressing.
So with Leave No Trace and the 7 principles, it is a scale. And some people want to go into the woods and be very natural. This is my jacket when I'm skiing or when I'm out in the woods. This is not a very natural color. It's very obvious that I am in the woods. This is not very low profile. And so that's kind of up to your personal, I think some people talk about with tints. There are tints that are like blues and greens and grays and some oranges. You don't necessarily like the lime green tints. So that's a sliding scale of kind of how you feel about that.
But it's standout appearance in this.
That could be, yes, yeah. But then there's, the other side of it is, well, if I am lost or I need help and I'm wearing bright pink, I'm going to be easily found. When you look at runners on the road, they're wearing like those neon colors. We tell runners not to wear black. So that's a sliding scale, kind of your preference. Go ahead.
So I am one of the scout leaders.
I knew there was some.
When we're in a large group, we tell them to wear a color like that. They have last name groups that we can spot them.
Yep.
That's more of a safe.
He's a scout leader, and they have a special uniform that is Class B that actually encourages them to wear a bright color. So when I can give you this microphone. I'm sorry.
No, I mean you explained it pretty well, and it's just for safety and visibility, which is the exact opposite of the principle there. But that's just because of group dynamics and overall group safety.
Yeah.
Right, and our responsibility to the group.
And that can also, work against it too. You are such a large group, you're going to automatically draw a lot of attention. And so watching, 17 young men in red jackets hop down the mountain, it's a sliding scale. I'll talk a little bit to that sliding scale. Just throwing in some extra quotes. None of nature's landscapes are ugly, so long as they are wild. So quickly, I have just a couple, it's kind of like write to the editor and tell me, your confession. And so, your pair, whoever you're saying with, we're going to go over some different things. You're going to describe the principle that was disregarded, talk about the impact, and then kind of give them their punishment. So I'll give you an example. So he was young, hiking the Appalachian Trail, and he took down a blaze. And so what do we say? He's like, am I terrible? So what principles did he break? He wasn't being respectful of others. He kind of disregarded the wildlife, harming the tree further by scraping off a blaze. What a domino effect. The Appalachian Trail is pretty well marked, so I'm sure there wasn't any mass confusion of our thru hikers there. But what could we do so that he feels he can pay back his sin is maybe volunteering at a trail or spending 2 weekends. The Continental Divide Trail is in rough shape. With the government shutdown, maybe we would send him to a national park to go clean up. So that's kind of the idea. So here's the one that you will chat with your partners. So I found a cool waterfall that no one knows about. I posted a photo on Instagram and tagged the location. Does this make me a traitor? Social savvy in SoCal. So what principles did he break? Why is this so bad? And what do we think social savvy in SoCal can do to recover? So just a couple minutes or so. We don't have a ton of time. I'm chatty. Told you. Just talk to the people you're sitting with. Yep. So I do have a couple other things that I'm going to get to. So did we have any, when I looked at the principles, I would consider not respecting wildlife. There are probably animals that are accessing this water that are not able to get to it. They're not maybe traveling on a durable surface to get to this space, and they're now creating a trail. They're leaving a trace. Does anyone have any, kind of how could this person repay their mistake? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, aside from taking his post down, he could become like an outdoor labor skills educator, because what he's doing is bringing a lot of people into the wilderness just by virtue of them being on social media and being not even there. You can help educate by becoming an educator.
Yep. So becoming an educator. I was thinking he could update maybe the caption on this photo to talk about it, maybe not geotagging that space, so maybe being more broad. Instead of saying, I am at Cascade Mountain, I'm in the Adirondacks, or I am in New York. And people that are really intrigued and interested might send a message, and you can talk more about why was I more general there. But actually, Leave No Trace did come up with guidelines for social media, because that is what has potentially drawn a lot of our people into this space. And so consider your audience. Who are you? Who is looking at your post? Are they savvy in Leave No Trace? Do they understand how to recreate ethically? Or are they just searching the hashtag, you know, Instagram, like best photos or whatever it is? So being thoughtful about what you're tagging. So like, you know, rock top shot. That's something that is constantly regrammed and used. Are you calling out something and then sending it to a large audience? And then encouraging your post to talk about how to do these things the right way, talk about hot topics. Right now with the government shutdown and national parks are feeling the brunt of it. Using your social media for a positive thing is really important too. So I do have some more of those, but in the interest of time, because I just have a couple minutes, I do apologize, I'm going to skip through. These are offered every month in Backpacker magazine, and they're pretty interesting. So this person built Karen's, we could talk about what the issue is with that. The next one, this person dumped out extra fuel at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Yeah. They suggested that what did they say? He said something like, you put two-pound weights in your backpack the next time you go. And then, you know, the next one I think is like having your dog off leash. And then the last one is not wearing earbuds, so they're playing their music really loudly, and so we're not respecting others. So you don't have to tell your partner this, or whoever you're sitting next to, but think about a time, I know it probably popped into your head, and I'm talking about some of these principles, that your L&T principles were not tip-top. And what can we do in the future, now that you've heard a little bit about this, that you could do? So our confession is, you know, as a young child, I lived in Maryland, and there were these beautiful Calvert Cliffs with wonderful fossils that were really cool, and I wanted one of those really big shell fossils. And so we took our boat out, we brought our boat right up, and I have one of those in my house. And that's, like, that shouldn't have happened, right? Because if everyone kept taking a fossil, there will be none. Also, these cliffs are eroding awful because we're taking these pieces. So think about kind of your ethics, your experiences, your trend, where you are today, and how can we prevent kind of that? How can we help others? And that would be kind of like the next thought that you can have, is how do we have these conversations when we're in a space where someone is not practicing these things? So I was hiking and we came to a junction and there's a group standing in the middle of the trail, taking up a lot of space, probably more than 15 people, and he's eating an orange, and he's just throwing his peels on the ground. How do we have that conversation? And LNT talks a lot about the authority of the resource, and it really goes back to, instead of having a conversation shoulder to shoulder, face to face like this, of what are you doing, this is terrible, talking to them more next to them, and saying, hey, like, look at this, we made it to this junction, this has been great, you know, that one spot was kind of tricky, I really am enjoying this, we should be preserving this for everyone. And so instead of me being the naysayer and you're in trouble, you're saying like nature has the power and the authority. And so I would encourage you guys to look at the authority of the resource on how we can infuse. There are people that are just never going to get it, but I think sometimes when we are not as confrontational, we're more educational of like, hey, you know, those orange peels aren't natural to this space. It's important, instead of saying, you know, you're a terrible person, maybe even if you're just picking up like, oh hey, I'm already packing stuff out, I'll grab your orange peels and we'll take them with us. And they're not necessarily, you're not like picking on them, you're not totally calling them out, but you're just educating instead of being super confrontational. And the last bit is, after I took this course, again, thank you for being able to do this, and with the support of the GVC chapter of ADK, is really, I feel that these principles are more applicable than just when I have my backpack on and my hiking boots. Being considerate of others and minding wildlife, planning and preparing ahead, carrying in and out your waste. These things are really applicable every day. And I talk to college students about authority of the resource constantly. And I really want to challenge you guys with how can we be more leave no trace in our everyday life. So even just starting from today. I used to live in like the Finger Lakes region. I recently moved closer here, and I've been able to compost without me being the compost like. So I have a bucket and I take it somewhere, and they do the composting, and in a year I'll get a bag of soil, and that's something that's pretty easy to lower the waste that we're putting into our landfills. You know, using our reusable bags when you go grocery shopping, opting out of a straw, smaller things like that that you can kind of think of leaving no trace in every day. And how can we educate other people of that? You know, me just opting out of a straw every time I go out to dinner isn't going to change the world, because also fishing lines are a major issue, but my conversation with people might touch more. And, you know, not using those reusable forks every day, or I'm sorry, disposable forks every day with your lunch, bringing the bamboo sack that you just got for Christmas, which thanks, Mom. And so I just want you to think about that as you leave today, and have heard a little bit about Leave No Trace. And so think about the principles, the confessions that I quickly breezed through. And I'll put this PowerPoint up on our Facebook page, and we can continue the conversation there. And your everyday actions, and how we can maybe change, especially at the new year, some of your little habits that could make a big change in the year. And this talk and information doesn't have to stop now. Leave No Trace has a ton of opportunities. They have a website, they have YouTube, they have all of that stuff that's available at your fingertips. It's very easy to get lost in watching that. Leave No Trace has traveling trainers that go around the world and make videos all the time. And it's very entertaining. But so LNT is a great opportunity. Our club is a really great opportunity. You showed up today to talk about this and to learn a little bit more. And so volunteering with opportunities of trail cleanup, or adopting a trail or a lean-to, and volunteering with our local chapter, so leading a trip, and then when you're leading those trips, saying about, hey, this is what I did to prepare, this is what I'm going to do, you know, I'm doing all this stuff. So these are awesome. Keep learning. If there's like maybe a couple questions, we can maybe answer them after today, but I want to wrap these up.
Questions that you would like to ask Amanda, maybe we can go off to the side and ask her the questions. We need a few minutes to tonight to allow our presenter to set up since he was not able to come earlier. So we have to